What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Dynasty Dumbies, your home for the latest and greatest in college football news and action. We're your hosts, Tony and Hunter, and we're going to jump right into some of the weekly storylines that happened this past week, with, of course, the major one being that the former Houston and Tulane strength and conditioning coach, Kurt Hester, has sadly passed away. You never like seeing that sort of stuff in any sort of format, but our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family.
Yeah, really, really sad to see. He had been battling leukemia for a while now. So if you hadn't seen, I do know ESPN did a really good special on him a few weeks ago. Houston is changing their blackout game to this week against WVU, as that was Kurt's favorite color for him. So shout out to him for just being a guy who really represented what the game was supposed to be about, and thoughts go out to him his family.
Absolutely, it's always tough seeing that in any sort of light, and then of course being in the sports world and college football, as a whole, it brings even more light to it. So moving on to another set of news here, of course, is Brian Kelly getting the boot at LSU. This was kind of a weird sort of development here, how it happened, and but nonetheless, it happened. Brian Kelly is gone after a pretty lackluster 4 years. He came into LSU. A lot of people thought like, oh, they're going to be a legit team.
Immediately,
they're just going to be really good. They're going to have SEC around them, a lot of competition, and not have to worry about stuff. And it has just been nothing but shortcomings every single year he's been there.
It's odd to say. I will say, I was on record a couple weeks ago when we asked in our group chat of if we thought Brian Kelly would survive the year, and I said, of course, they will have him throughout the rest of the year, and then 2 weeks later, he is fired, so I have to eat my own words, which I seem to do a lot of. But what are you going to do? But, to say he didn't have successes, it feels odd. He went 34-14, won 3 bowl games, consistently was ranked, but the last 3 coaches to coach at LSU won the SEC and a Natty all within their 4 years there. Saban, Les Miles, and good old Ed, go Gators. Or not Gators, that's who I want him to coach for, though. But go Tigers. I was thinking about what we were talking about the other day with how it would be nice for him to go to Florida. But now that LSU's open, the door opens for him to go home.
He said he'd go back, so...
Yeah. But, I think LSU might be the best opening. So they're going to have their options of who they want, even if it is Ed Orgeron.
It's going to be really fun to see between them and Florida who can get that, that coach that they all want and need. Of course, the name that's always going to be tossed around right now is Lane Kiffin, because people see Ole Miss as, kind of lackluster, even though it looks kind of the opposite. I mean, Saban said it the other day that, is it really that big of a step up right now, going to an LSU or a Florida if you're Lane Kiffin? Because, he's got everything he really needs at Ole Miss, and it seems like it's working pretty well for them this season. So it's gonna be fun to watch here. And I think I'm with you, where you're saying that, is LSU kind of the top spot? You could definitely argue that. It's, again, one of those sort of blue bloods where it's just kind of like their premier, program and team, and the only downside is living in Baton Rouge. So we all know that the best team in Louisiana is Tulane. So, but no, I think it's going to be definitely something to watch for, because this next hire could absolutely, decide if they're going to be the next best thing, or if they're just going to be another sort of just recycled sort of thing here with Brian Kelly and how it's going lately with some of these coaches, where just because you're paying them a lot doesn't mean they're the best.
Exactly. Another big buyout coming out of this one, of course. But I think it'll be interesting to see where a coach like him, if he does land a job, what if Florida goes after him? It's just, Brian Kelly is not swirling within the best of light right now. The exit's not clean, and It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. It was still surprising to me that he left Notre Dame for LSU. I thought that I always viewed it as a lateral move. Obviously, in the era of the 4-team playoff, it presented him a better chance to win the Natty because the independent status for Notre Dame really hurt them in being able to make the 4-team. But now in the 12-team, I think they're almost guaranteed a spot every year off of brand alone. So as long as they win 10 games, they'll be in. But it's interesting to see where he'll go. So we'll definitely keep a close eye out on this one. But in other news, we had talked about a few weeks ago that the NCAA had not only changed the transfer portal window, but also had started allowing college athletes to gamble on pro sports. But the SEC commissioner, Greg Sankey, came out and called it a major step in the wrong direction and really went into why he thought this was a bad idea. And just a few hours later, it came out that the NCAA had voted to delay this policy change until essentially November 22nd, and it's going to allow 30 days for schools to vote on rescinding this proposal, and if it's adopted by less than 75% of the D1 cabinet, it won't move forward.
It feels weird saying this, especially, SEC commissioner, but agreeing with him. And I'm kind of with him in the sense that I think it's a step in the wrong direction because I think it brings more issues than, is it really that big of a deal for letting these athletes gamble on pro sports? Because what happens when they make that jump, or if they make that jump? Like, how are you going to regulate that? Because obviously, with pro athletes not being able to gamble on just about anything, or anything, to say the least. So it's like, I think it would just cause more issue for the NCAA level and the professional level if and when athletes make that jump. So I'm kind of with them here. I think it's a step in the wrong direction, and I hope they can find a way to hopefully just kind of shelve it and be like, this isn't really necessary right now. It seems like a lot of bad things could come out of that.
I agree. It's setting a precedent early, teaching good habits, essentially. I do think it's a little gray and blurring the lines of, these are college kids. They are legally allowed to gamble. But if you're in American college football now, it's closer to a semi-pro sport at this point. And not all athletes are making money that rivals pro. I'm not saying that. But there are more opportunities to make money, and I just think allowing them to gamble just risks putting them and teams and everyone in a bad spot, and it's just easier to avoid it. But I do understand people are going to argue that they should be allowed to gamble. It's within their rights. So it's a really gray area, but I think it's a cleaner move and smarter move to try to take the gambling aspect away from athletes. I think there's a bigger conversation to do with sports gambling in America and in the world with how it's grown over the last 5 years and how integrated it is with sports. And I do think there needs to be steps to be taken to limit it. And maybe this is, old man yells at cloud sort of moment, but that's just how I feel about it.
No, I was literally about to say that, I was going to bring up the point of how much gambling has grown as a whole in the sports world, and how a bunch of leagues are constantly talking about it, sponsored by it, showing it, commercials and whatnot. And now we see this whole thing, of course, with the NBA and their giant rigging sort of gambling sort of ring that they got going on. So who's to say that something like that couldn't pop out? And I'm sure that could have played a part in this, seeing what is going on over there and how the federal government is being involved. And the NCAA could be like, ooh, we should probably stay out of this realm for a little bit just because what's going on right now. So they should just stay out of it as a whole. Like, I know I'm with you in the sense that, like, if the athletes live in a state where it's allowed, they can technically do it if they weren't an athlete. But it's that fine line of, professional to sort of amateur sort of thing of, like, when you're a professional, there's expectations of it. And I would go along the lines to say that as a college athlete, you are borderline professional in today's day and age. So there's a very fine line between, and I think most of them would hopefully realize that even if it were to become a thing that came into light, most of them I would hope would kind of just stay away from that realm altogether.
It's about making smart choices.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, they're kids at that age, especially, you get some of these freshmen coming in at 17, 18, making all this money. Make that smart choice. Don't be stupid about it. Make that smart choice because, me and you both, all of our friends, we all know the amount of, if we would kill for that amount of money just to play football. So it would be fun, but they just got to be smart about it. I mean, there's the whole lecture of, how many athletes go bankrupt after however many years when they're done or even while they're in their career. But that's just something we'll have to keep an eye on for sure to see if they decide to go the degenerate route. So moving on here, we're going to jump straight into our rankings for this past week. Of course, with our criteria, like always, head-to-head results will matter. Weekly results, again, will matter, of course, with all of them being equal. Not, week one doesn't mean less because it's week one. No hypotheticals whatsoever.
None.
No another hypothetical wins for nobody. And then, of course, team vibes, how they're playing, how things are going. And then, of course, with our collective group rankings, it is AP style with 5 total ballots, but this past week we only had 4 total ballots submitted. So
thank you for your service, Edwin.
Yes, Mr. Edwin. Hats off to you, I guess, for not doing your job. I don't know. You can go ahead and lead us off here with your rankings.
Yeah, taking a look at mine here, not much change really within my top 10. I do have Georgia Tech jumping up into the top 5 after a really good performance against Syracuse, and just thought Oregon's been looking a little dull, so I still think they're a great team, but dropping them down here, giving Georgia Tech the nod here, the undefeated team, I think I should have done this earlier. Undefeated in the top 5, no brainer for me. I do have Ole Miss jumping up to number 12 after their win against Oklahoma, and as you can see, I do have Oklahoma dropping out of my rankings now. Miami and Texas Tech were right in that group with Ole Miss, and it was just really hard for me to rank these. I went back and forth with this for a while. At one point, I had Texas Tech at 12, Ole Miss at 14. I had Miami at 12, Ole Miss at 14, Texas Tech at 13. This is what I settled on. I thought Ole Miss's most recent win was enough to give them that edge. However, really doesn't mean anything because they would be the first team out in my playoff scenario, as I have Navy jumping up to 17 in another group of 5 bundle here with Navy, JMU, and Tulane at 17, 18, and 19. And I heard the noise, and I had to put my Dukes ahead of Tulane out of pure respect and homer tendencies. So go Dukes, baby. Huge win this Tuesday against Texas State. These rankings do not reflect this game, though, so that game will be reflected in my rankings when JMU jumps into the top 10, so keep a look out for that. But my newcomers here, Memphis, Iowa, and USC. I think Memphis obviously deserves to get in as they knocked off USF, who I had at 13, who I did keep in my rankings. It was really... I had some other teams here at 25, but I settled on USF. I think Iowa and USC represent a good group within the Big Ten. It was a challenging ranking for me, though, on the back half.
I'm with you there. I mean, I think the last 5 spots, you could even almost say last sort of 6 or 7 slots there, very hard to rank. There's a lot of teams that are basically like neck and neck right with each other, and it almost just comes down to preference at that point, or just flip a coin, you could say. But I'm with you.
I totally agree. I had a bunch of teams sitting on that outside there. Texas, Mizzou, OU, Washington, Michigan, North Texas, Wake Forest, TCU, Utah are in a group for me that I'm really watching. And I do say, though, for Mizzou, Oklahoma, they dropped out of my rankings this week along with ASU. But for Mizzou, OU, Washington, and Michigan, I feel like Mizzou's best quality is just quality losses or lessons, as we like to say. And I just couldn't find a reason to keep them in the rankings. Wow. Oklahoma has beat Michigan, and I'm just, there's kind of a triangle of death for me where OU has beat Michigan, Washington lost to Michigan, or excuse me, beat Michigan, but it has to stay behind OU because of my thoughts on the head-to-head formula here. So it was just really challenging for me. I thought these teams were all good enough, but it just didn't work for them this week.
No, I'm with you. It's extremely challenging every single week, especially with just how things have been played out these last couple weeks, and then just looking further down the line is just even more chaos that's going to ensue. And but the least chaotic part for I think all of us is our top 5. I would say, all being relatively the same. Of course, I kept my top 3 the same. I did have thoughts about Texas A&M and Ohio State swapping, but I'm not quite there yet.
I thought about that too, but Texas A&M will only beat Arkansas by 3. I just couldn't do it. Couldn't do it.
My biggest gripe with both of them right now, albeit Texas A&M did look fantastic this past weekend, absolutely dismantling LSU and possibly expedited the process of Brian Kelly leaving or getting kicked out, I should say. And I don't want to take the recency bias into it with just that single win. And Ohio State, for me, I thought early season looked lackluster, but they've definitely played a lot better recently. And they do have good wins, but they're very close, I would say. If Texas A&M can continue to perform like they have, especially this past week, I could absolutely see them making that jump. But for now, it's going to stay 1, 2, 3 unless someone slips. I had Georgia Tech move up to 4, like you had said, where they had a very good-looking win. Especially shout out Haynes King, dude balled out.
He's got to pee blood after every game.
It's insane, but he puts up the stats and it's showing this year. So
he needs to be in that Heisman talk. Everyone's talking about Diego Pavia, but it should be Haynes King.
That's a whole nother conversation. I am so pro Haynes King right now for the Heisman because what Haynes King is doing is what people think Diego Pavia is doing. And I hate to break it to you, he's not. He's not a bad player by any sort of means, but he ain't Haynes King. So, but I also had Oregon drop after their lackluster performance against Wisconsin. I'm with you. They've looked a little dull. They haven't looked like they've had that spark in them that they had before that loss. So if they can refine that and kind of get going again and start, throttling again, they could easily, climb again. But they're going to need to find it quick because, we're getting to these nitty-gritty games. I had BYU jump up 2 spots, which in turn made Alabama and Georgia just drop 1 respectively. I think BYU has just played fantastic recently. They're definitely a team to watch, and they are, I would say, almost single-handedly keeping the Big 12 alive at this point, and at least in the eyes of AP and possibly the committee. They are just keeping it alive because they are playing good football and they're doing it their way and the right way. I had Ole Miss stay at 9. Nothing crazy. I don't think if they would have stayed how it had majority of the game where they were kind of throttling Oklahoma, they could have jumped. But obviously, with the head-to-head against Georgia, they can't jump ahead of Georgia anyway.
No.
But they did have another sort of collapse there in the Oklahoma game, but then pulled away there at the end. So
it was a little Ole Miss right now.
It was a little nitty-gritty there at the end. So it's getting cheeky bum time for them in the fourth quarter for some reason, and I don't know what it is.
They looked like world eaters earlier in the year, and now they haven't been able to play complete games, or at least not play till the very end in that sense, where it's just something lets up.
Yeah, it seems like they're playing 3 quarters basically, because it was towards the I caught the back half of the game because it got close. It seemed like they play like 3.5 almost quarters, not even really 3.5, and that like something just flipped for Oklahoma and Ole Miss. They just kind of, I don't know if they just relaxed because they were up at least 2 possessions at one point. And then next thing you know, it's bang, bang. And then next thing you know, Oklahoma has the lead. And they're playing from behind. And it's just like, oh, that doesn't look good. But then they kind of, I don't know if they just flipped the switch and said, we're back. And they shut it down. So good for them to, grind it out and get that win, because being up big like that, especially what had happened in the Georgia game previously where they weren't able to recover from it. Now that they were able to recover from it, says a lot about them, but Oklahoma's not Georgia. So Cincy moving up one spot for me. I had UVA drop one because going to overtime against UNC, not a great look. Albeit still grinded it out, eked it out somehow. The guy was an inch short on the 2-point conversion.
That I couldn't believe when that game went to overtime. That it was insane.
Yeah.
And maybe I do have a case for maybe I could have put Cincy at 9 and dropped UVA and Louisville down a spot each, with the precedent UVA beating Louisville. I thought about it, but I felt more comfortable just leaving, my top 11 as is, besides that swap of Georgia Tech and Oregon. So I do respect the move of putting Cincinnati a spot higher. I think those teams are another cluster there that are very tight within their resume and level of play right now.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many, most of my movement is mostly just people flip-flopping at this point, especially in that top 11 sort of sense. You could almost say top 15, obviously with a lot of them hinging on the others, with UVA beating Louisville being Miami. So those three, if all things stay the same, are going to be like that regardless. And then I had Vandy drop after their performance because I don't think it was all that. I fully expected them to come out with a convincing win there, being at home, and with all this hype around it, and it really wasn't great. And you could almost say it hinged on the fact that they broke the Mizzou quarterback's leg, with a lot of controversy coming out of that too, saying it was a pretty dirty play. After I watched it, didn't look great. I'm not going to sit here and say it's dirty and that somebody's going out there to try and break legs, but it didn't look great. It's unfortunate, and that game was very close. And even when after he had left, it was still very close.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they came a yard short from tying it, and I debated with Vandy as well. I really wanted to jump Houston up a little bit more, but I didn't feel good about dropping Vandy for winning. But I do have in my notes that I got to give them credit for beating Mizzou, but they did not look good.
Yeah, I'm with you there. They did not look good in any sort of sense, and for me, that hinges on the vibes part, where a win is a win. I'm not going to drop them out of my rankings for winning, but with the teams above them, possibly winning better, you could say, and just the way it just didn't look right to me. If that was any other team, do they win that game? I don't know, because we don't consider hypotheticals. But it's a question that's definitely going to be asked to anybody, especially your SEC meat riders that would say that, if that was Georgia, we would have beat the brakes off of Mizzou and all this sort of stuff. Why is Vandy this and that? I don't care, whatever. Texas Tech jumping up, of course, and then I'm with you in the sense of Navy being my highest G5. They're still undefeated, but they got huge tests coming up. They have probably the roughest end stretch of games here, so we're going to really find out who they are. Houston, of course, jumping up as well after a great win, and then I have Tulane, of course, above JMU because roll wave. And then I had San Diego State jump in at 20. They are a great team, only one loss. I thought I had to put in more one loss or less, if any, left above before I put 2 losses in, because you're this far into the season with 1 loss, it's always hard. Memphis jumping back in, of course, after their big win against USF, which drastically changes the race for the American, in my opinion. I think it's Tulane's to lose at this point. It's as simple as win out, even though that's not simple. But that's all it takes, and you probably have your spot guaranteed in the playoff. I dropped Oklahoma 4 slots to 22. Again, they were very close to being dropped altogether. I only gave them a little credit purely because they kept it close. They brought it in. Obviously, Ole Miss got it at the end, but when I was watching that and I saw them down multiple scores, they were like immediately a write-off. And then next thing you know, I get the notification that Oklahoma's winning in the fourth quarter, and I was like, "What the hell?" I watched the game, so I'm giving them a little credit. They're probably on their last little leeway with me. And same with Tennessee. Only reason I kept Tennessee in, honestly, was because they did do well, I think, against obviously not a great Kentucky team, but they did put up 50 plus. To me, that means something. It's about performance on the field, and I thought that performance on the field was not worthy enough to get them dropped, because I had said in our previous episode that they were very much a can win and drop sort of team. But with that sort of performance, I couldn't find that reason to drop them. If it was like a one-score game, okay, yeah, they probably would have been dropped. But to go in there and get the job done like they needed to in that sort of fashion, I was like, okay, I'll give them another week. They got a great game coming up, which we'll go over soon here, against Oklahoma. So that's something it's going to drastically change a lot of stuff. Even if the winner is probably going to stay. I don't think I could find it in me to drop one of them for winning that matchup, but the loser is probably going to be gone for quite a bit. So
three losses are going to be tough, and I really couldn't. I've said it before. I am not on the Tennessee wave. I think Tennessee is the biggest threat to freedom in the world right now, with them continuing to be ranked. It is crazy to me. I do think they're a good team. It's not that I think they're a bad team. I just don't think they've done anything worthy of being ranked. They have no wins with a team over a 500 record within their conference, and they barely squeaked by two teams that don't even have an SEC win. I just don't see the ranking appeal. I do think they're a good team. I think Joey Aguilar is a great quarterback. I think they have a good, aggressive defense. I just need them to play, when they play a team with a pulse, to win. And even when they've played teams with half a pulse, they don't show up and play or blow them out like they should. I just can't rank them or feel good about seeing them ranked. We're going to talk about it a little bit more with the AP poll, because our polls are not nearly as bad as what I think is being done in the AP poll with Tennessee. They're just the biggest threat to democracy right now. There's no, I can't fathom it. I will say this weekend against Oklahoma, they have a great chance to finally beat a team with a pulse. If they get this win, I'm going to give them a lot more respect. I've been just waiting for them to have a win that I care about, and they haven't beat a team with a pulse yet. I could care less about them beating Kentucky, or it's just not for me, I guess.
I see it. I see your side of it, and that's what you think, and that's okay, because like for me, it's more or less they've been ranked. I don't think that I dropped them out at all at any point. So
they've never been ranked for me.
They've been ranked for me. I think just about everyone else they've been ranked as well. If you want to get on anyone, you could get on Cody for him. He has them at 19. So
yeah, that's
at least I kept them
ludicrous.
In that 20. I kept them. They were 24 last week for me. I put them at 23.
No, I understand your all's choice. I just respect you a little less now.
It's fine, because it doesn't really matter, because I don't care.
Yeah. Another hypothetical.
Another hypothetical. But of course, just to finish out, I had Notre Dame jump up one. I almost I kind of forgot about them when I initially did it, because they were they didn't play. So, but it's whatever. They're still in there riding that Notre Dame brand, as much as I hate them. And then I had USF round out at 25 as well, just like you did. I thought they still deserved to be ranked in some way, shape, or form, because they have had a great season, and it took a stellar Memphis comeback for them to lose. So I still think they're going to be a dangerous team. They're hoping that they need Tulane to just drop the ball, and they need Memphis to drop the ball. And
that AAC race is...
It's heating up.
It's insane. USF still only has that one loss, and we can talk more about this when we look at the AP poll and Dynasty poll here in a second. It's going to really be interesting to see how this American title race shapes up, which will affect the playoff majorly and affect a team like my Dukes, who are on the outside looking in right now, but it's they're a great team. It's just going to be hard with the current outlook.
Yeah, we've said it I think a lot of people have said it as well, where a one-loss American champ gets in over a one-loss JMU Sun Belt champ so it's unfortunate that it's come to that. Who knows, maybe one of the P4s implode and you guys sneak in as well. That would be electric. But it'll probably never happen because the committee sucks. But of course, just going over really quick, who dropped out of mine, of course, is Mizzou dropping out, and then Illinois dropping out, with San Diego State joining in as well as Memphis. And for me, outside looking in is Michigan, Washington, Utah, North Texas, in no order specifically. Just those are the teams I thought of just kind of off whim when I was doing mine. I was like, these are teams that I've definitely kept an eye on and thought about ranking recently. Especially, I would say Utah is probably my 26 or first team out sort of thing in these rankings, but a lot of football left to play, so they could easily find their way back in.
There is a lot of football left to be played. I just have one question for you, Tony. I got to know, why is Oklahoma at 22, but Texas is not ranked? This was a topic of debate for me, and both of these teams are sitting at the same record, but Texas has got that head-to-head win, so what's the deal here?
Well, for me, it's as simple as horns down. I don't like Texas. I never did like Texas. I thought they were one of the most overhyped, if not the most overhyped team in the world. And they're still, in my opinion, still kind of riding off of that, preseason hype and how they're ranked in the AP. But nonetheless, I digress. But for me, it's as simple as, again, with Oklahoma already being ranked in that sense. And then, obviously they've slowly dropped since. And it's just, they're, again, a team that's looking to basically drop out at this point, especially this weekend if they lose. But I just gave Oklahoma the slight edge. It's going to be pretty hard for me to put Texas back in there. They need to show up a game or two, possibly. They do have a 6-2 record, but their biggest win coming against Sam Houston, which is, not a great win outside of the Oklahoma one, obviously. So, besides that, going tit for tat with Mississippi State, that's not too terrible. But Mississippi State has been a big team of, showing up for the games that don't matter. Besides the Arizona State game earlier in the season, barely eking by Kentucky, who we just saw Tennessee put up 50+ on. Losing to Florida of all teams, not a great look. So I think that I see where you and Cody specifically were coming at me with it, where the head-to-head sort of factor in it. I do very much consider that, but for me, it's only considered as harshly as it is when it comes to them being ranked. And if I just don't think Texas deserves that number next to their name right now, in my opinion. And I'm all about deserves, and for me, Texas is very much a hard deserve right now.
That's fair. I guess I just think the head-to-head matters a lot. And obviously, I don't have either of these teams ranked. Texas was my 26th team, but it was a very tight race. I think that head-to-head matters overall more. But I see where you're coming from here. I just think both teams don't deserve it. So that's how it is for me. But I know Oklahoma's a fine team as well.
I will always say it, and as much as I hate the SEC and whatnot, but that Texas game for me was against Oklahoma was definitely, it felt like an anomaly almost, because I think we were both on record saying that we think John Mateer definitely came back too early. I can't sit here and say, if the backup played, it would have been a different game, but I still am I gave them, when they had lost that game, I know I'm on record saying I gave them that tiniest bit of leeway because of the whole situation of not knowing if he's going to play. He does play. Did he come back too early? He still hasn't hit that gear of sort of what we saw earlier in the season where he was like a Heisman contender. So I still am on the realm of I think he came back too early, and I think he honestly shouldn't be playing right now. because it's not like it's an easy injury to come back from, especially your thumb, which is very important to a lot of things. So, but it's one of those things that it's going to be looked at from now on, obviously, and like I've been saying multiple times, that this game, this upcoming weekend that Oklahoma plays, could very much decide their fate. Both those teams, this game is going to decide their fate for probably just about all of us.
I agree with you. It's going to be this weekend's going to have a lot of movement, I think, for the rankings.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Let's jump into the AP poll and Dynasty Dumbies official rankings here. As you can see for the AP, there's no movement in that top 5. So it's interesting to see here. They did have USF, Arizona State, LSU, and Illinois all drop out of the rankings here, and had some new teams jump in, USC, Houston, Utah, and Memphis. Overall here, there isn't a whole lot of big shifts from the AP. I know what I would like to call out is that we've talked about it every week. Notre Dame being at 12 is still crazy, but Notre Dame is Notre Dame. But for me, the bigger thing is BYU and Georgia Tech, I think, are extremely underrated, and I think it's a clear brand biased issue here.
I'm with you there. 100%. I think it's a brand issue there where it hurts them to put an ACC team like Georgia Tech and a Big 12 team like BYU higher than some of these Big 10 and SEC schools. If it was, your Clemsons, or Miami, they could probably get away with it because those are your bigger and better teams in the ACC. But you hear of Georgia Tech and everyone's just like, what is this? No one cares about this. No, everybody should care about Haynes King because this dude is balling out and keeping this team very much alive and well in the playoff race here. You can say the same with BYU. They have a freshman quarterback named Bear, and they're balling out. Like, come on. Like,
where's number
ridiculous.
47?
He's
he got
quarterback
that
ranked
dog.
47. Like, they should just be number 1 purely because of that. So
Why
to
didn't
have
you
a
put
starting
him there then?
I might have to. Let me change it real quick. But it's insane to say the least. I mean, again, with Notre Dame, of course, being 12. Ridiculous. I mean, you could tell that's just brand, and they're trying to keep them in that playoff race. One thing we noted when the AP rankings did come out, and depending on where you go to look at the rankings, will tell you between BYU and Miami who's 10 and 11 because they did tie, but some places were putting Miami above BYU, while some places were putting BYU above Miami. And from what I'm seeing, there is no statistical tiebreaker. I think it just goes.
I will say the ESPN playoff show last night before the JMU game, when they were doing the hypothetical bracket of what it would look like with the AP poll, when they did it, they didn't place either team above the other. When it came for spots 10 and 11. It was within the bracket. It was just BYU / Miami. They made them interchangeable. But we did see earlier in the week a lot of back and forth of who was being ranked at 10 instead of just saying tied at 10. So it was really interesting to see.
Says some graphics were putting 10 and 11 next to their names when realistically it's 10 and 10. And so it was interesting to see who was doing that, who wasn't doing that, who was putting the 10s, who was putting the 10 and 11. It was kind of showing some true colors here. But, I put it on our graphic as 10 and 11 because I don't feel like changing it. So
They are tied.
Yeah, they are tied. And I put BYU above because that's what the list said that we had. So I just copy off that list and throw it in there. But
I think this is a perfect time to talk about, which is not something we've actually had to talk too much about this year, but what happens in the Dynasty Dummies poll if there's a tie, because there's only 5 of us voting. It's far more likely for it to happen, and believe it or not, it has happened a few times this year. And for example, Louisville and Cincinnati were tied this week, same amount of points. How we don't believe in ties. You can't tie in football. We don't believe in it. So there has to be a team that's above it. Louisville gets the nod over Cincinnati here. because our first tiebreaker comes to which team is ranked the highest in an individual ballot. So if there's a tie and one team A is ranked at 6, but team B is ranked highest at 8, then team A gets the nod. However, there's scenarios like Louisville and Cincinnati where they're both ranked the same at the same height. They both had the same highest ranking. So what do you do in that scenario? Well, our second is whichever team has the lowest ranking. In this case, it was Cincinnati. Within one poll, they were ranked 15th, so they get bumped down. If there needs to be a third tiebreaker, we haven't created it yet. So we don't know what will happen if it comes to that, but we will find a reason besides just because we feel like it, that we think that that's a good way of having it a tiebreaker for us right now.
Yeah, it's likely to happen, especially when we get dwindled down to less and less teams that we consider ranking. And, it's happened before. We just never mentioned it. But this week alone, we had 2. The first one being the Louisville Cincinnati, and the second one being JMU and Tulane, which ended up tying. And JMU gets the tiebreaker, unfortunately, because Cody, of all people, had them ranked up at 16. So that was the highest, and the highest Tulane ranking being 17, which was also on Cody's ballot. Because for everybody else between me, you, and Will, we had them 18, 19 respectively. You had JMU obviously at 18, Tulane 19, and then me and Will had Tulane 18, JMU 19. Mm-hmm. So Cody single-handedly broke the tiebreaker himself and ours between those two, because I had missed that altogether when I was initially looking at it, and I saw me and Will had them the same, and then you had them switched, and I was just like, oh my god, what are we going to do? And then I was like, oh wait, Cody did his differently. So
we dodged a bullet for this week.
We figured it out, but I'm sure at some point we'll run into a necessary third tiebreaker. And we'll figure it out when we figure it out. We do that as a group, so we'll ask everybody what we want to do. Mm-hmm. So it's not I'm just doing it because I feel like it sort of thing. Because I'm the one that makes these graphics and whatnot. So so I'll just be like, just because I'm going to put Tulane at 1. But
well, I'm glad you're an honest man.
Yeah, I try to keep it as honest as possible. Obviously there's always going to be a tiny bit of bias for my favorite team, but
bias,
I try to be.
That's why JMU's ranked ahead of them for me this week.
Well, there you go. I mean, the bias for me is, not why they're ranked ahead of them, but it's pretty damn close. So, but going over ours, the dummy poll, really quick. Well, actually, let me jump back to the AP of who dropped out, with USF dropping out after they dropped the ball against Memphis, along with ASU, LSU, and Illinois. And then joining in the AP poll, obviously, is Houston, USC, Utah, and Memphis.
Mm-hmm. And, with the AP poll, real quick here, I think Vanderbilt's a little overranked, and I think Cincinnati and Houston are very underranked, which you can see that reflected in our poll of a little bit more parity there. Speaking of the dummies poll, the top 3 stays the same here: Indiana, OSU, and A&M. However, there was one ballot with A&M at number 2 to Mr. William, so he did that on pure bias. I won't hear otherwise. And then we got Georgia Tech, Oregon rounding out the top 5 here. BYU, Bama, Ole Miss, Georgia, UVA rounding out the top 10. Like we said, Louisville, Cincinnati, it's neck and neck here. Miami, Vanderbilt 13, Miami 14. Texas Tech is at 15. And this is what we were talking about a little earlier with the AAC. Navy's here at 16, so they would be the last team. Cincinnati would be the first team out. Navy would be the last team in from a championship perspective here. They have a tough path here with North Texas this week, Notre Dame, and Memphis before the end of the year. It's going to be a tough stretch. If they win all of those games, they're in the playoff, though. They could slip up with one of those games and still be the one-loss American champ, I think, and make it. The ACC really needs to cannibalize itself for a JMU or San Diego State to get in, and they're running out of opportunities, so we need some upsets to happen from my perspective.
It's very possible with, all of these G5s with them being the only ones that play these random weekday games. So it could completely throw off how teams are going. Obviously, with JMU playing on a Tuesday, which is weird to me, but a Tuesday nonetheless. And then Tulane are playing on Thursday, so it's very possible. You never know with these sort of games how things are going. One thing I have not quite been able to wrap my head around is Ole Miss being above Georgia, even though none of us ranked Ole Miss above Georgia.
That's not something I had picked up on.
I noticed it when I was filling in the dummy rankings on the graphic, and I on our calculator, it has Ole Miss 8, Georgia 9. I don't understand it, but it is what it is. We'll possibly figure that out at some point.
That has to be a mistake.
And that's what I was thinking, is that there could have been a slip up somewhere, but I don't know. Georgia is somehow ranked below them.
I had not caught that. That is, we are investigating this live, folks.
Yeah, it's definitely something weird. Because I checked if there was spaces, somebody spelled it wrong, because that happens a lot. Didn't happen, and Ole Miss has 75 while Georgia has 73. So that's something we will investigate into that somehow happened. But nonetheless,
I actually don't know how that has.
I have
happened.
Zero clue, and we'll have to try and deep dive into it and see what the reasoning behind it is, because something seems like it's not adding up. So
no, it does not, because everyone had Georgia ranked higher. So there's something.
And you even had Ole Miss down at 12, so that for sure should have brought down their points. And it didn't for some reason. So
I'm not sure. Well, we'll have to get a correction out there. We'll dive into this.
We will. Yeah, we'll jump into it when we figure it out. But of course, the teams that dropped out of our rankings being USF, Mizzou, and Arizona State, with Memphis, San Diego State, and USC jumping in. And then other teams receiving a vote is USF being there with 4, just barely missing out. Iowa receiving votes as well, and then Michigan and Washington also receiving votes. And then the last team with 1 single vote is Texas, with Cody squeaking them in there at 25. But nothing too crazy on our side, I think. Ours is pretty respectable, I would say, with where teams are shaping up as a whole. It'll, of course, change drastically with some of these games that are coming up. And another quick note about the AP is that this should be our last week with the AP. If the college football playoff rankings should come out for the first time next week on Tuesday, I believe. So we will be saying our goodbyes and good graces to the AP. We will not miss you. You kind of suck. So from now on, we will be doing the playoff rankings, because those are the ones that matter, and they decide where teams go. So we will be comparing ours to the playoff from here on out.
It's a very good point. The committee is the one that matters here, so there's really no reason to continue to look at the AP poll. We do keep track. We will continue to keep track of it internally. We do that at the coaches poll as well, but AP is what's most important now. College playoff poll is the only one that ends up mattering, besides what our rankings are, which should be the real rankings in my opinion, but what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, if college football was right, then they would be based on dummy rankings, but we're not quite there yet. Maybe one day we'll get there where we mean something, but for now, we have to just yell at a bunch of old people that sit in a room. So we're going to jump right into some weekday games that happened, with the notable one obviously being JMU against Texas State and a Sun Belt showdown.
Oh, it was a great game. JMU's offense explodes for the second straight week, 42-20, a fourth straight second-half shutout for JMU's defense. However, they did give up their first 300-yard game of the season, but in the second half, it was all JMU. It was 28-20 at half, and they just poured it on. The offense now is really coming to life and is looking like world beaters. Alonzo Barnett's knee looks fully healed. He is one of the most dynamic quarterbacks, I think, in the NCAA right now. He is really great. Defense is still looking sharp. I do want to say I am wishing well for Bobby Crosby, who got injured for Texas State. It was a scary situation, was stretchered off. He did give a thumbs up, and he was released from the hospital earlier today. I have not been able to get a more concrete update on him, but I feel like it's a good sign that he was released from the hospital.
Always a good sign when, they're allowed to go home. So never a fun thing to see when people are hurt and whatnot, but, getting that thumbs up as they're leaving is always a nice sign to see that they're somewhat coherent. But, of course, JMU finally gave up that elusive 300 yards. Ha.
Oh no! It was bound.
No, yeah.
It was
gave
bound
up
to
300
happen.
yards. Oh, gave up 300 yards, but still pitched a shutout in the second half. Like, oh darn!
Yeah.
I just had to, I had to have something I could be like, ha to use.
I understand. They're playing lights out though. I don't care. They are making the case for why is it not every conference champion getting in? Obviously, knock on wood, you got to go 1-0 every week. But JMU, the last 2 weeks, has looked like the best group of 5 team, in my unbiased opinion.
No, I mean, I would 100% lean with you in that where, on both sides of the ball, they have looked by far the most dangerous, barring that, ODU first half where it was just a shootout. But then, again, another second half shutout, which is absurd, none to say. So your coaches know how to adjust. Those video coaches deserve a raise. Every defensive coach for the second half deserves a raise because they are just killing it right now, which is, good to have in this time of year when it comes to those sort of games where, it could be a quote-unquote trap game, where going to a place like a Texas State on a random Tuesday screams trap, but they handled the business like they should have. So they're definitely going to be, creeping up on that playoff spot, come the end of the season.
Honestly, I don't think that, as weird as the random Tuesday game is, I actually think it was really good for the JMU brand because that's what a lot of people are talking about in the media today because that was the game to watch last night when it came to football. And JMU put on a show. So right now, what everyone's talking about, the only thing they really had to talk about, no disrespect to Conference USA, and I believe it was, who played last night?
Kennesaw State.
Yeah, Kennesaw State and UTEP. JMU was the talking point, and their national spotlight is reaching a high again.
It's definitely getting there, and they're definitely knocking on the door of, got to consider us. So we'll definitely, of course, keep an eye on them in every single one of their games and if they can finish strong and, do what they're supposed to do. But moving on to another weekday game, of course, is my Green Wave traveling to UTSA in a Thursday night game, which, again, to me, screams trap game. Especially with UTSA and their absurd home record, especially in the conference. At home, over the last 5 seasons, they're 29-3, and they're undefeated in home conference games under their head coach, Jeff Traylor. So this is definitely something to keep an eye out for because they have been really good at home. But what I'm watching for the most is Tulane's red zone offense. They have got to score when they're in the red zone. There's been too many times this season where we get into that red zone area and they just falter out or they'll go for it on a 4th and goal situation or a 4th and short situation, come up short, turn the ball over. They've got to leave with points, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown. I'm a huge proponent and take the points. I love a good, going for it on 4th down situation, but these early game stuff where, it's a tie game, just take the points, make the other team play from behind. That's where a lot of mistakes can come from. So it's a big proponent for me to get those points early, even if it's settling for a field goal. Take the 3 points, move on to the next one. So it's something that has to happen for them to really take precedence and show that they are still a very good team because they're still in the very much in these conversations of it's the Americans. It's theirs to lose. They can easily they win out. They get the American. They're in the playoffs. I can guarantee you that. But if they can't put out any of these, gripping performances that they need to, and like they did last season when they're getting these considerations, it's going to bite them in the butt. And hopefully they can figure it out. I've been saying this the past 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. Get out there, get a stamp win, like they've done before, and just go out and show off. And I need it to happen, and it's going to come from, of course, Jake Retzlaff, who is just carrying this offense right now, both on the ground and in the air lately, has gotten way better, especially the last game against Army. He was just chucking that ball, and I love it. I like to see them use both assets to him because he can throw the ball, and every defense know that he's also a threat on the ground, so they got to be able to play both. And we do have a really good running back room that has to be utilized more often. We are getting Maurice Turner back. He did play the previous week against Army, but that was his first game back from injury, and he was the starter going into the season, and he's just hasn't been able to play purely because of injury. So having him back in there really helps, and I think we do have a good three-headed room in there in that running back room with Javin Gordon, Arnold Barnes III, and Maurice Turner. I think are all three very good running backs. But another good running back is UTSA's running back, Robert Henry Jr., who has 868 yards and 9 total touchdowns. So if they can shut down the run game, make good old McCown throw the ball, and make some mistakes like he's done in previous games, I think it could go in our favor.
I hope it doesn't go in your favor because, respectfully, I need everyone in the American to just implode. And I would love for UTSA to keep that insane record at home going and stay undefeated under head coach Jeff Traylor. He has the boys on a wagon when they're at home. So it would be huge for JMU to get this upset for Tulane. But Tulane, I think you're right. They got to convert in the red zone. Field goals can't always win you games, but you got to get the points. Like you can't walk away with nothing.
Exactly. You go into that red area in any game and you leave it without any points, it's a failure. It's just a failure in all forms. Even if it's a risk you're willing to take, like on a 4th and goal, like super short yardage situation when you're on the goal line, bank it. Like there has to be that guarantee score play, and it's been a little lackluster. I mean, there's been a couple of games where they have that scored in the red zone, but it's called back for a penalty, and that's been another issue with the team is the penalties. It looked a lot better in that Army game. With still some ones in there that were like, what are we doing sort of thing. It kills the momentum. But if they can just tighten up the tiniest bit, they have a lot of good things going for them. So I'm looking forward to it, and I think they'll be able to get it done.
I guess we'll have to see when this is being recorded tomorrow night, by the time this goes live, the day of.
Absolutely. So jumping into our must-watch games of the week, starting off with Vanderbilt traveling to Texas.
This is a big matchup for the SEC. Obviously, the rankings reflect the Dynasty Dumbies Rankings. Number 11 Vanderbilt on the road against in Austin against Texas. This is a ranked matchup according to the AP poll, which we don't, believe in. This is a chance for Texas to correct their wrongs, though. They are the favorite coming into this game. It's going to be a really tough environment for Vanderbilt to stay alive in. If they play like they did against Mizzou, against Texas, I think they're going to lose. The crowd in Austin is going to be too much for them.
With how things have been going for Texas recently, where they have been able to string some wins, looked a little better on both sides of the ball sort of thing, you can expect it to be loud there and the energy to be there. So Vandy's going to have to find a way to silence it quick. And, of course, it's going to come from Diego Pavia, who has propelled himself, quite literally himself, into Heisman talk, which to me is absurd. I don't agree with whatsoever. I love Vandy. I've always loved their underdog story, and I've always loved Pavia. But comes a place and a time where you got to know when to pump the brakes on yourself a little bit, and I think he needs to pump the brake a little bit. But I think it's going to be a tough one for both sides in Vandy and Texas. Can Texas really get going and have a consistent rhythm going on offense, both in the air and on the ground? And can Vandy disrupt that by making Arch look extremely uncomfortable and just completely throw off any sort of rhythm that they can build?
It's going to be pivotal for Vanderbilt to make Arch Manning make that second or third read. Don't let him just get the ball out quick. You got to make him start thinking about what's coming at him in terms of pass rush and making him have to go through his progressions while doing that. It's going to be I think, a defensive game. Pavia's obviously talked himself into the Heisman talk. I do think he's a great quarterback. He's just not a Heisman quarterback. And he has a chance to shut up a lot of doubters. You know, he didn't play well against Mizzou. Vanderbilt as a whole didn't. So it's going to be vital for them if they want to stay within this top 12 of both our rankings and the AP poll. And, of course, more importantly, the playoff committee's poll next week. With all this being said, Tony, who do you got?
This is honestly, I think, a lot tougher than most would think. With how Vandy was a little lackluster last week at home with that game day environment, and with Texas, things seem to be going in the right direction. And I'm with you in the sense of Vandy. If they play anything like they did in that Mizzou game, they're going to be in for a long night. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Texas is going to take it, not by much. It's again going to be a very defensive, very close game. But I think they'll put off Pavia enough to where he's going to make more mistakes than Arch will, and it's just going to shoot themselves in the foot there. So I'll take Texas in a nail-biter.
I like where your head's at. I think this is going to be an extremely, extremely close game. But I'm going to go with Vanderbilt on this one. I think they can walk into Austin and get it done. I just don't think Texas is good enough to play. I think Vanderbilt's just maybe not the better in terms of talented team, in terms of individual players, but that's, as we have discussed on this, not what determines a good team. Mm-hmm. They have the better team. I think that they're going to bounce back. I think the game day environment was a lot for them to overcome, a lot of hype, a lot of spotlight. It's hard to win when you host. There's a lot more eyes on you. I think this is going to be a chance for them to really correct some of those mistakes they had. And I think Pavia is going to outplay Arch in this one.
I'm not going to sit here and disagree with you. And it's definitely one of those tougher ones we've seen. So it's going to be a great one to watch nonetheless. But another one that's going to be really fun to watch here is number 10 UVA traveling across the country to play at Cal. This is going to be massive because it just shows, how well can UVA handle this cross-country travel. And we've said it multiple times with some of these games and how they've played. When a team has to do this really far travel, it usually doesn't go well. I mean, look
it
at
didn't
the Penn
go
State
for Cal
UCLA.
last week.
Exactly. I mean, look, Cal alone, they had to do it. And you look Penn State, UCLA, and some of these other games where it throws off your time because you have to play an early game, but over in California, it could be at like 10 o'clock, sort of thing. So it can completely throw it off, and it's going to be interesting to see how UVA can handle that. Are they going to be able to go in, get the job done like they should? And being this high of a ranked team and with the stuff that they have done, they should be able to go and handle business. But again, this almost screams trap because you never know with Cal. They seem to show up every once in a while and then go hide away in their books, and then next thing
they've been a little up and down this year.
Yeah, so I could definitely see more of that, and this just screams an up game. And is UVA going to be able to handle any sort of pressure that comes their way?
I think it is going to be a challenge for UVA. We saw Cal last week come to Virginia and lose to Virginia Tech in a really disappointing way in overtime. It was a heck of a game that Cal really just gave away. And now we get the inverse. They get the Virginia team coming to them. I mean, at this rate, Cal's going to be playing JMU and ODU next. I won't even give them Liberty. I'll save them that. But I do think it's going to be a challenge for UVA. It is never easy to play from coast to coast. The ACC is no longer the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's the All Coast Conference. So we'll see how it goes. I think this one is going to be tight, and I'm curious to know, who do you got?
I think this is going to be not that close. I think UVA goes in and gets the job done. I think they're just going to show that they are levels above Cal at this moment and that they deserve to be that top dog in the ACC and just perform as well as they can and get the job done.
I'm going to agree with you on this one, although I don't know. I think it's going to be a close game, though. I agree with the outcome. I'm taking Virginia here, sticking with the home state, even though I never cheer for UVA. I actually would love for them to lose this game. But I think they're going to get it done. I do think it's going to be close, though, with how they played UNC last week. In that fashion, I think it's going to be hard for them to go across the country, but they're gonna squeak it out. It's not gonna be any walk off, but they're gonna win. But it's gonna be a tighter game than they would like it to be.
Yeah, and another tight game that I think over here is another ACC showdown that's not so much in the Atlantic Coast, is Miami finally leaving the state of Florida and traveling to SMU. They're, like we have said, I have said multiple times throughout the season that Miami has finally left the state of Florida. They're going to SMU in Texas. How are they going to handle this? They have not done it all season. The most they've gone is, north and south in Florida, and they've been around the same sort of area. Is this going to affect them any? Probably not, but you could say it could be a factor in this, seeing as how they've been basically a hometown team the whole season. But will the SMU fans be able to, make a difference, or are they just going to not show up, because SMU is not, they've been sneaky, okay, but their loss to Wake Forest at the buzzer could have really stinted their season. So it's gonna be a rough one to watch here, possibly.
It's got a chance to go that way. Miami's got to deal with that travel, and I think a big part is going to be SMU's fans. They need to show up for this game. They have to be, as so many other teams call it, the 12th man. They need to be loud. They need to be disruptive. I think that's honestly the most vital thing for SMU in this case. And SMU's not out of that ACC title race. Excuse me. They that loss to Wake Forest is their only conference loss. So this is a pivotal game for both people. I know SMU's got 3 losses, but not out of the ACC title race. So like we saw last year with Clemson beating SMU in that title game, a 3-loss team could sneak in if SMU runs the table here. And they're going to really rely on Kevin Jennings, their quarterback, to do that. He has been Superman form, and he's going to need to continue to be Superman to beat Miami.
Absolutely. Kevin Jennings was a lot of people's sneaky Heisman contender. I mean, he finished the last season phenomenally and willed SMU to that ACC title game and then to the playoff, and unfortunately didn't show out as well. But he has been playing pretty good in this later half of the season here. But again, I'm with you in the sense that he's going to have to play. He's going to be better than Superman, I think, to really give SMU a chance, because Miami's defense is still extremely good on all fronts. They're starting to look a little better. They started a little slow in their last game, but then pulled away there and just absolutely beat the brakes off of Stanford, I believe. So it's gonna be a tough one. And let it be known that technically SMU is above Miami in the ACC rankings, purely because they have one more win than them. But we will see how that pans out. I mean, like you said, they're very much in this race. I mean, the ACC is still wide open, with Miami, being 2-1, everyone above them being 3-1, 4-1, 4-0, 5-0. So this could very much decide, who has that chance at it. And I think a big proponent of it, of course, is going to be Carson Beck. Can he continue to improve upon himself after that horrendous 4-interception game against Louisville? He did look better, of course, in the Stanford game, but he needs to go back to early season Carson Beck of just balling out, showing us that he was that highly touted Heisman potential at Georgia, NFL first rounder sort of thing. We've got to see that again for Miami to really showcase themselves and put a stamp on, we are the ACC champ and we're going to show it. And it's going to be, I think it's going to come down to him for the rest of the season and how he plays. If they can get decent play to above average play from Carson Beck, I think they could have a chance of, taking it, but they got a lot of competition in front of them.
I agree. We've said it many times this year. Miami can go as far as Carson Beck brings them.
Absolutely. So with all this being said, who do you have in this showdown?
This is going to be a real test for Miami. It's their first road game outside of the state of Florida, and there's been a lot of talk about that, obviously, with you and me and, the media also talking about that as something that's crazy that it's taken till November to happen. And I think that talk's been for good reason, because I do think SMU is going to get this one out. I think they're going to come out and hit Miami hard in the face and not look back. And I think Miami's just going to come in. It's almost like a trap game for them in my eyes, where they have homecoming the week after, hosting Syracuse, so they want to get back home, looking at that game, thinking of homecoming. And I think that it's going to work out in SMU's favor, and they're going to be able to squeak this one out. I think Kevin Jennings is going to have a great game for them.
I like where your head's at. I have a little SMU love in my heart purely because I used them as a dynasty last year, and I did well with Kevin Jennings. Almost won him a Heisman. But I'm going to have to go with Miami here. I think just as a whole, they are built a little better, and I think it's going to take more than just Kevin Jennings to beat this team. And he could still play very good, but I don't think it'll be enough with everyone else that is around him. It's going to come down to the defenses, in my opinion, and I'm giving Miami that edge all day. I think that they're going to make SMU and Kevin Jennings have to do those, extra plays and, off tempo plays of take away those options and make Kevin Jennings, create that extra play of can he get the ball out quick, or is he going to have to scramble around in the backfield and try to find that open man or scramble up for some yards? And if it goes that way, I think Miami could turn it somewhat ugly. I don't think it's going to be ugly, though. I think it'll be close for majority of the game. I could see possibly Miami pulling away a little bit towards the end when SMU possibly gets a little desperate being behind. But I think Miami takes this one on the road and just solidifies themselves.
I can see where you're coming from. Miami, we had them ranked number 1 earlier in the year, so they're a great team. It's going to be a great game. And our next game, shifting over here to the Big Ten, number 25, USC travels to Lincoln to take on Nebraska. What do you got for us on this one?
Well, of course, with USC joining our rankings at 25, just squeaking in there, Nebraska was a team that was considered at one point for quite a while, but it's a massive matchup in the Big Ten for positioning. And can put USC back on track to, possibly getting in to any sort of playoff situation, everything at large, I would say. Pretty big for them. And, of course, Nebraska always trying to keep themselves relevant and possibly keep Matt Rule. Who knows? Of course, this is probably going to be an elimination game for title contention between these two, with already having conference losses. And I think it's gonna be pretty big in the sense of the run game here. With, of course, all the talk is going to be about the quarterbacks. But if it comes down to the ground game, which running back is going to perform better?
It is going to be an important game to establish the run. There's going to be a lot of eyes on the quarterback duel with Dylan Raiola and Jaden Mavia. They are both really good. I mean, people will argue Dylan Raiola is not. I'm not saying he's the best thing since sliced bread, but I do think he's talented. But I think the run game is going to be more important for this outcome. USC running back Wayman Jordan and Emmett Johnson from Nebraska. This is going to be the players to watch. I think that whoever can get the ground game going and control the clock in this one is going to have the advantage when it comes down to that last fourth quarter.
It's always important to, have that time of possession advantage over your opponents. You never know when it comes down to whoever has the ball last ends up winning the game. So if you can control that and you can basically dictate when you have the ball, when the other team has the ball, it's always going to help in your favor. And establishing that run game is the massive part of that. If you can get a consistent run game, it helps your defense, it helps your offense, it helps every facet of the game, and it can just make things a lot easier on you and everyone in general. It makes it easier for the coaches to call easy plays to set yourself up for success. It could set up that play action because we know that Nebraska will chuck the ball if they need to chuck the ball. I mean, Dylan Raiola does have an arm and he can throw the ball, and he is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's anything special like a lot of people have touted him to be. But Mr. Patrick Mahomes 2.0. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be a close one, but who do you got?
I think USC, I think the Trojans are going to win this one. I think they are a very talented team. I've been high on Nebraska earlier this year. I had them ranked as high as 15, but that was more due to my own commandments of rules of head-to-head victories. I think USC is the much better team, and I think that this is an opportunity for them to just knock Nebraska out of the Big Ten title race while getting a really solid win against a good team in Nebraska.
I'm going to agree with you here. I think the Trojans get it done. I think they are a more battle-tested team, and they know what it takes and what they have to do to establish themselves in the Big Ten. It's going to be hard, obviously, with the people above them, but I think they very much have every chance to show that they still are very much a legit team and can still very much throw things off. So I'm going to go with USC here to get it done on the road.
And speaking of teams looking to prove themselves as legit contenders, we have number 16 Navy heading to North Texas for a huge American Conference showdown. I know this is one both of us have our eyes on. This is huge playoff implications, and it could be the matchup of the week. And it's really the question that needs to be asked is, can Navy earn some respect? They've played the worst schedule, 136 out of 136 in the country so far. They're undefeated. You could argue the dummies have them overranked. I think they should be ranked, so the AP poll is crazy for not. But at 16 with their schedule, I know if Liberty was in this situation, I probably wouldn't even have them ranked. So I got to respect the troops, but this is going to be a really big game with huge playoff considerations.
And you had said it, for me, I think this is the game of the week because we find out what Navy is. Because like you had said, they have the lowest strength of their schedule in the entire nation, but in these last stretch they have one of the hardest with who they play. So we're gonna find out who they are, and it's gonna be a tough start here with North Texas, who's been pretty good since that blowout loss that they had to USF. I look for them to establish that air raid yet again. Can their quarterback just chuck the ball, get another 600 yards? And just have his way with the secondary. And if Navy can, of course, like we all know, going to control possession, run the clock out like every service academy does, it's going to come down to, can they score when they need to score? Are they willing to take the points when they need to? Or are they going to, every service academy, especially the Army and Navy, they look for, if they get put in third and short, that is their bread and butter. Because if it's third and short,
3 yards in a cloud of dust.
If it's third and short, that fourth and short is right there, and they're going for it regardless.
Exactly.
Unless they're pinned deep in their own territory, they are going for it. I saw it firsthand when Army played Tulane, and every single third and short, I just was like, oh my god, this is so annoying. Because if it's anything between four yards and less, they're going to go for it on fourth.
You got to play all 4 downs against Navy. They are.
It's very hard. It's taxing on your defense because they're out there for so long. The way they do their substitutes is also hard as well because your fresh guys can't get on in time. They usually play with some form of a tempo, albeit it's not super duper fast because they drain the clock. but it's something where you always got to be on your heels because you never know, especially with Navy and their quarterback, Blake Horvath, who has been very good. He was very good last season and is still very good this season with what he has done. And I look for him to kind of, control the game a little bit. If he can take it and do what he wants to do with it, I think that Navy can, set themselves up for success.
I agree. He is going to be the key for them, and this is going to be a classic. When you think about MMA wrestler versus striker, this is how I view this matchup. It's can Navy's their best defense is going to be a good offense. Can they keep North Texas off the field? Service academies rarely do well when games turn into a shootout because they're a methodical offense that likes to march down the field. So they want to drain the clock, and it's going to be crucial for their offense to make long, sustained drives and to keep North Texas's offense off the field. Obviously not just so they can't score, but you keep them cold. Once you let Drew Messmaker get going, who's a true freshman dog and who I believe deserves Heisman hype. He has been great for North Texas. If you keep him off the field, he can't beat you.
Yeah, Messmaker is ridiculous this season. I mean, he's put up almost 2,500 passing yards, 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with did all those come in the USF game, I believe?
I can't remember, but that was where the majority definitely did.
He had 3 of them were in the USF game. 1 was in the Charlotte game earlier. But, I mean, still, it's insane. He's playing lights out. Even in the game against USF where they got beat bad, he still played good, barring the interceptions. I mean, he still threw for 2 touchdowns, over 300 yards, and obviously in his last game against Charlotte, throwing for 608, which is absurd on any sort of realm. So if he can get going, I think it could be for a long day for Navy. But it's going to come down to how fast does North Texas score, if they do score, and how long does Navy hold on to the ball, and can you get them off of the field?
I agree. Like I said, wrestler versus striker sort of matchup, clashing styles. These always make for really interesting games, and it could be a frustrating watch for North Texas, as you know, with watching service academies. But with all of this, who do you got?
Oh, this is a rough one because I don't know what to think yet because of how Navy has played and who they have played, and this is their first true test. But I think I might go mean green here and go with North Texas. I think that they are still a good team, even after that loss to USF. I think that really, they have that sour taste in their mouth, and they know that they're still very much alive in the American, especially if they get this win. Could really throw a wrench in everything. I kind of need it as a Tulane fan. That's not why I'm picking it, but I think it would just absolutely make the American the most insane conference race, I think, out of all the conferences, because it could just literally be anybody's game. But I think they're going to have enough to get it done and make it a frustrating day for Navy.
Well, I totally understand your reason for North Texas is not because you need it. I'm picking Navy because I need it, and I believe in the power of friendship. I need them to beat North Texas as a JMU fan, I believe. I need these teams to cannibalize themselves, and for me, I think the path I see for JMU is North Texas getting that second loss, and then Navy losing to Notre Dame and Memphis. And then they're eliminated too, and then the rest have to cannibalize each other in some way. And I got to respect the troops. I think that their offense is going to be the best defense, like I said, against North Texas's air raid. I think they're going to be able to keep them off the field and just grow a sense of frustration within that offense. And for that reason, I got to go with the armed forces of Navy.
No, I could definitely see it, being extremely frustrating for North Texas as well. I mean, I saw it firsthand when Tulane played Army, how frustrating it is when you think you got them and then you don't, and it's just like, oh, here we go. They got a fresh set of downs. So if North Texas can get over that mental bump, I think they can they'll have enough to get the job done there. But another game that is huge here, and possibly another game of the week opportunity. You could say game of the week. And game day
where
will
college
be
game
here.
Day's going. Yep.
Game day will be here with number 12 Cincinnati traveling to Utah.
This is, as much as I think North Texas Navy could be game of the week, I think Cincinnati Utah is that game for me. It is a huge game in the Big 12. I know Utah is not ranked by us. They are ranked by the AP poll, but Utah is a really good team, and I think they do deserve respect. Where Cincinnati has clearly been very good after that loss week 1 to Nebraska. Utah needs to feed off of this home crowd. Their stadium is so loud, it is deafening, and that is going to be a key for them.
Absolutely. Any home crowd advantage you can get, you need to take it and go with it, because in these games where it's the nitty-gritty conference games where you need it, especially a team like Utah where they're, coming off of a hard loss to not coming off of, but they had that hard loss to BYU. But they're going to need it to take it early, make Cincinnati play like they did in that first week when it was a quote unquote home game for Cincinnati, but it was filled with nothing but Nebraska fans, and that to me that does make a difference, and I think it did make a difference for Cincinnati. So if you can do that again, make them make the mistakes early into the game, it could be favorable for Utah. But with the way Cincinnati has been playing recently, it's they're playing very good. They're establishing themselves in that top group of the Big 12 teams, which seems to be almost wide open at this point. Even with BYU still being undefeated, all it takes is one loss and it's anyone's game. So if they can get this win here, it'll really establish themselves here as possibly a title team here.
It is a very pivotal game, I think, really for Utah, most importantly. If they get a third conference loss, they've dropped one to BYU and Texas Tech. A third loss eliminates them, with BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, Texas Tech all above them, Arizona State still hanging out there. I think they get a third conference loss, it is over for them. They will not be able to make the conference championship game. While for Cincinnati, getting that sixth conference win is, like you said, going to put them at the top of these Big 12 teams with a really good shot to make that title game and make a case for even an at-large bid within the playoff. If, with our previous game, if Nebraska can knock off USC and string together some games, their loss turns into a really quality lesson. Absolutely. And,
can Utah really bring it together after they just throttled Colorado where it wasn't even close? Can they bring that back home and do it where they need to do it in a much, much bigger game than the Colorado game, obviously. So it's going to be one that, like you had said, if Utah does not go in there and come out with the win, their season's over. For playoff bid.
That's such a deep thing to say. Your season's over and you have a winning record.
It's absurd. Like it's this is one of the sports where it's like you could finish with 10 wins, but like it was not a successful season purely because the aspirations of making the playoff and whatnot, because that's everybody's goal. But and with the way Utah has played this season, I'm sure they want to throw themselves in that playoff conversation, and then they know that the only way they're probably going to do that is by winning the Big 12. So every single game is a playoff game for them from now on.
Exactly. You could not have said that better. It is, every game's a playoff game for Utah, for a lot of teams in the country right now, and this is going to be a really great game, I think, and I'm curious to know, Tony, who are you taking in this?
Man, this is another one of those that could possibly be a rough one. And Cincinnati has been playing very good football recently, and Utah has also been playing good football recently, even with a close loss to BYU. But I think I'm going to take Cincinnati here. It's going to be very close. I think it could be walk-off-esque here. I think they could possibly fall behind early due to the crowd and whatnot, but they get it together. They get the job done. on the road and just really solidify themselves that they believe in themselves and that they know that they are a legit Big 12 team here.
Cincinnati, I think, has really surprised a lot of people this year. I don't think a lot of people thought they would be in this position, and they have been really, really well put together since that first week. But I think this is the week where they stumble again. I think that home crowd's just going to be too much for them. Utah gets loud, and I think it's going to affect them. I really think Utah is going to feed off of that energy, and they're going to be able to get this one done. And I think they might win a little handedly. Nothing crazy, but I could see a 10-point win in their favor and really mixing up this Big 12 title race, which it would just get crazy with the amount of teams that are sitting at the top here. But I am going to stick with Utah on this one.
I'm going to put an asterisk on mine. If Dampier plays, if Utah, most of the time, Utah starting quarterback Devin Dampier does play, I think they get it done. But if he is not playing, I think they don't get it done. It's still very much a question mark. I had noticed that he did not play in the Colorado game. He's still battling an injury from the BYU game, but it's still in question whether he's going to play. This article has him listed as probable. So we will see how that goes because I think he is absolutely a game breaker. He is very good when he has been under center for them, and it shows. I mean, they've put out great numbers with him under center, and he's still their I think their better option at quarterback. And but if he doesn't play, I'm going to go Cincinnati. If he does play, I think I might have to go Utah.
I will agree with you. Mine is conditional on if Dampier plays. I do think he's going to play, so I'm riding with Utah, but just know if he doesn't play, you didn't hear any of this come out of my mouth, and Cincinnati was always going to win this game.
We'll see how it is.
I know how to rewrite history. We'll be all right.
It's our podcast, our rules, so we can change what we want. But that is our must-watch games of the week this week. Obviously, there is more games that are very good as well, like Oklahoma at Tennessee is a massive game, especially like I had said, it could very much decide the fate of both of those teams. Arizona State is traveling to Iowa State in another big Big 12 matchup, especially for Arizona State. And Iowa State, of course. I mean, it's big for both of them. And then another G5 here is Fresno State traveling to Boise State. That could also be a massive game in the matchup for possibly, maybe the Mountain West can kind of sneak their way into some playoff talk there. But those are some other games you might want to watch out for. Let us know what you think about these upcoming games. Who's going to win? Who's going to lose? Who deserves it? Who doesn't deserve it? Let us know what you think about our rankings. Who's in the better spot here? Why am I right? Why is Hunter wrong? Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Dynasty Dummies. Feel free to follow our personal accounts as well at Hunter_Shaw5 and at CronyTony20. And we will see you all next week.
See you guys.